Good morning, everybody. I have just set up the Big O and we are live on, or we're not live, but we're on Zoom, ready to record. And I'm getting some really strange things on Big O Live, which there's been a lot of changes. So it's got me and a couple of different numbers and different things, a couple of people joining. We have Mladen joining us as well, which is very exciting. And who's excited for a new day and for some reading and all of those different things? So as usual, the book that we were going to be reading, but that I only have in Chinese, and the actual book that we are going to be reading, which is a really good. And we have, let's have a look. Yeah, Hiro joining, which is a name in Japanese, which is really cool, in katakana, which I'm a little out of practice. I used to live in Japan, but that was a fun little thing. So welcome on Big O. And we're going to be reading from The Art of Thinking Clearly. Let's have a look where we got up to last time. Hindsight bias, why I should keep diary. I think that was the one from yesterday, yes. Then chapter 15. Why you should systematically overestimate your knowledge and abilities, the overconfidence effect. Okay, who's ready for some reading and some ideas? One of the best 15 minutes of the day to get you ready and into it. Okay, and improve your brain power too. Okay, so why you should systematically overestimate your knowledge and abilities, the overconfidence effect. My favorite musician, Johann Sebastian Bach, was anything but a one-hit wonder. He composed numerous works. How many there were where I will reveal at the end of this chapter. But for now, here's a small assignment. How many concertos do you think Bach composed? Choose a range, for example, between 100 and 500, aiming for an estimate that is 98% correct and only 2% off. So maybe take the time to actually do that, and then we'll come back to that at the end, apparently. How much confidence should we have in our own knowledge? Psychologists Howard Reifer and Mark Alpert, wondering the same thing, have interviewed hundreds of people in this way. They've asked participants to estimate the total egg production in the US, or the number of physicians and surgeons listed in the yellow pages of the phone directory for Boston, or the number of foreign automobiles imported into the US, or even the toll collections of the Panama Canal in millions of dollars. This is turning out to be a very interesting chapter. Subjects could choose any range they liked with the aim of not being wrong more than 2% of the time. The results were amazing. In the final tally, instead of just 2%, they were off 40% of the time. The researchers dubbed this amazing phenomenon overconfidence. Overconfidence also applies to forecasts such as stock market performance over a year or your firm's profits over 3 years. We systematically overestimate our knowledge and our ability to predict on a massive scale. The overconfidence effect does not deal with whether single estimates are correct or not. Rather, as Taleb puts it, it measures the difference between what people actually know and how much they think they know. What's surprising is this: experts suffer even more from overconfidence than lay people do. Generally because they think that they know the subject, so they are going to use their experience to make their predictions, whereas lay people are just going to be guessing. So they are more likely to guess correctly as opposed to the expert who has his own fixed mindset around it and will go only with that rather than looking at it on a larger scale. And thank you for all of the little hearts, Andy. That is amazing. Thank you. Okay, so experts suffer more from the overconfidence than lay people do. If asked to forecast oil prices in 5 years' time, an economics professor will be as wide off the mark as a zookeeper will. However, the professor will offer his forecast with certitude. So he's going to be absolutely certain, whereas the zookeeper is just guessing. Overconfidence does not stop at economics. According to Taleb, 84% of Frenchmen estimate that they are above average lovers. Without the overconfidence effect, that figure should be exactly 50%. After all, the statistical means median means 50% should rank higher and 50% should rank lower. In another survey, 93% of the US students asked, that's a funny sentence. In another survey, 93% of the US students estimated themselves to be above average drivers. That was a tricky sentence. And 68% of the faculty at the University of Nebraska rated themselves in the top 25% for teaching ability. Entrepreneurs and those wishing to marry also deem themselves to be different. They believe they can beat the odds. In fact, entrepreneurial activity would be a lot lower if overconfidence did not exist. For example, every restaurateur hopes to establish the next Michelin-starred restaurant, even though statistics show that most close their doors after just 3 years. The return on investment in the restaurant business lies chronically below zero. But the other interesting thing around that is that there are also a lot of people who have no experience and don't really know what they're doing, or don't have advisors who get started in the business. So I've experienced that from a slightly different angle. So have you already had a look at how many concertos you think that Bach composed and setting a range for it? I should probably do the same, right? So I have read the book, but it's been a long time ago. I do not remember this chapter very, very well. So I am going to say, I think he composed somewhere between, I think it's about 2,000 and 2,500. So I'm going to put my prediction down here, 2,000 to 2,500. Let's see how I go. What's your guess? Type it in. Let me know what you think your guess is going to be. And I don't have the chat box, so I can't see whether Mladen, who is watching live, let me just quickly check, has typed anything in. So I'll put it there so I can see if there is something in the chat box. Okay, hardly any major projects exist that are completed in less time and at lower cost than forecasted. It's always over budget and late. Some delays and cost overruns are even legendary, such as the Airbus A400M, the Sydney Opera House, and Boston's Big Dig. Any of you know any of those? I know the Sydney Opera House and the Boston Big Dig. I didn't know about the cost and time override on the A400M. The list can be added to at will. Why is that? Here, two effects act in unison. First, we have a classic overconfidence. Second, those with a direct interest in the project have an incentive to underestimate the costs. Consultants, contractors, and suppliers seek follow-up orders. Builders feel bolstered by the optimistic figures. And though their activities, politicians get more votes. And the interesting thing is that the person who gets the best quote out is the one that gets the deal. So they're going to make sure that it sounds cheap and that it is going to be done very quickly. But the challenge is that life happens. So you can make a plan to build a building or an airplane or anything really. And if you don't take into consideration what might go wrong along the way, then of course it's going to take longer and cost more if you run into an issue. So here in Sydney, they recently built a tram line, and they kept finding, because it goes past Central Station, and Central Station was built on top of an old cemetery. So you can imagine they started digging and putting together this tram line, and it was supposed to take, I think, 1 year, and it took about 2.5 years to build the tram line. Why? Because they kept finding dead bodies, and they weren't sure whether it was people that were murdered or it was people from the cemetery to start off with. Ah, dear oh dear. We will examine this strategic misrepresentation in chapter 89. Okay, so that is still a bit off. Later in the book. What makes overconfidence so prevalent and its effect so confounding is that it's not driven by incentives. It is raw and innate. And it's not counterbalanced by the opposite effect, underconfidence, which doesn't exist. No surprise to some readers, overconfidence is more pronounced in men. Women tend not to overestimate their knowledge and abilities as much. And there's a reason why men tend to do that, because we feel that we can overcome a system because we are hunter-gatherers. We are hunters, and we go out and we believe that we'll come back with something, and we have to, because otherwise we would have come back with nothing. Whereas women they like to follow systems. They don't have to go out and hunt. They just have their systems. They gather. They know exactly what they need to do. And it's very predictable. Whereas what men do, or used to do, isn't very predictable at all. And that's why men have this overconfidence and women are more realistic, follow the systems, especially in investing. So when it comes to investing, women will just follow a system. They learn the system, they follow the system. Men will get a system. They'll be bored by it because it's not as unpredictable as going out to hunt. So they look at the system and go, oh, I can do better than that. There's probably another way of doing it, and I can outperform the market. And so they go out and they do different things. They don't follow the system. They don't follow the rules. And sometimes it has disastrous consequences. So sometimes they'll hit the jackpot and they'll do really well. And most often they will strike out. So they're going to have this really inconsistent pattern. Whereas women, they follow the system. They make a little bit of money, make a bit of money, make a bit of money. So they'll get there 3% on average, whereas the man has 9% return, minus 5% return, 8% return, minus 3% return, 10% return, minus 2% return. Okay. So men and women, even more troubling, optimists are not the only victims of overconfidence. Even self-proclaimed pessimists overrate themselves, just less extremely. In conclusion, be aware that you tend to overestimate your knowledge. Be skeptical of predictions, especially if they come from so-called experts. And with all plans, favor the pessimistic scenario. This way, you have a chance of judging the situation somewhat realistically. Back to the question from the beginning. Johann Sebastian Bach. How many works survive to this day? That's interesting. I came up with 2,000 to 2,500. And I thought it was only concertos we were talking about, but now he's talking about numbers of works that have survived to today. And apparently there were more than they currently have. Some of them got lost, but the amount comes to 1,127. So I definitely overestimated on that one. How did you do? Did you overestimate or did you underestimate? Let me know. He may have composed considerably more, but they are lost. Okay, so that was the overconfidence effect. And I think that it's interesting how you can see that in men and women and investing and in what happens when we make plans and that we don't know what will happen in the future. And we need to take that into consideration because things will be more expensive than we think from time to time, and it will be taking longer than we think. So it's important that we are very realistic in what we're doing. And when it comes to investing, follow a system and make small incremental gains rather than seeing if you can game the system like men like to do. Okay, that was today's chapter. Tomorrow's chapter 16. Don't take news anchors seriously. This is called the chauffeur knowledge. That one should be very interesting since, yes, everybody is very focused on the news with everything that's going on at the moment. So we'll talk about that one tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. Have a great day. And thank you for joining. I really appreciate everybody that joins for the reading. It's always a lot of fun, whether you are on Bigo Live and you can comment and let me know immediately, or whether you are watching live on Zoom, or whether you're watching the YouTube and watching the replay. It is always great having you. Have a great day. I'm looking forward to doing some more reading for you and with you and giving my commentary. And maybe at some stage we might even have an actual discussion afterwards or something. Let me know your thoughts. I'm always open to suggestions, and thank you for being here. Have a great day.